Welcome to Table for One. I'm the narrator, and in today's video, I'm doing a rules refresher for the Immortality expansion to Dune Imperium. Let's get rolling. Alright, so I'm all set up to teach you how to play the Immortality expansion to Dune Imperium. So in this video, I'm going over the Immortality expansion, as I just said, for the base game of Dune Imperium. This is not with Dune Imperium Uprising. And as always, I have chapter markers down in the description, so you can jump if you have a specific question to a certain point in the video. And I will be covering all player counts in this video, but my focus, as usual, is on solo play. So let's get going. I have kind of a minimalistic setup here for a solo game with two rivals. Obviously, I haven't put anything here on these tracks, on these faction tracks. I haven't put out cubes for the rivals or anything like that. I have just sort of the components I need to talk about this expansion. So if there's something that I don't mention, then it is not changed from the base game. So during setup, you're going to place this board somewhere nearby on the table. This is called the Bene Tleilax board, and it has essentially three areas on it. On the top here, this is the Tleilaxu track. This main part with all these hexagons, this is the research track, and then this dark space down here, this is the axolotl tank. And I will talk about what all those things mean and how they're used, but you'll notice there's a little beetle icon on this track, a microscope icon on this track, and a cube with some little squishy circles on it on this track, or in that tank, I should say. So we'll talk about what all those means, but you're going to place that out. You're going to take your Intrigue cards, and there are new ones that come with this expansion. And like all cards that come in this expansion, whether they are the Intrigue cards or other types of cards over here, House Hagal cards, whatever they are, if you ever need to separate them back out, in the bottom right-hand corner, there are three little dots, so like a triangle of little circles, just to indicate that they came from this expansion. So take your new Intrigue cards and shuffle them in with the other Intrigue cards that you have. Now, this game, or this expansion, Immortality, can be played with just the base game of Dune Imperium, or it can be played with Dune Imperium plus Rise of Ix. So if you're playing with Rise of Ix, then you're going to shuffle all three of your Intrigue card decks together. But take your new Intrigue cards, shuffle it in with whichever ones that you're also playing with, and then that's your Intrigue stack. Then you've got your Imperium cards and Imperium row. So you're going to get a bunch of new Imperium cards with this expansion. Again, just shuffle them into the previous deck, and then you're going to deal out 5 of them. Now, in this example here, I've only got the new Intrigue cards and the new Imperium cards. I have not shuffled them together, but normally you would. This will just allow me to show you some more examples more easily. So again, super simple. You don't need to remove any existing cards from either the Intrigue deck or the Imperium deck. You just shuffle it all together, deal out your 5. There's your Imperium row. Your Intrigue deck is ready to go. There is also this new deck here. This is the Tleilaxu deck and the Tleilaxu row. And to set this up, these is a new type of cards. They look like Imperium cards. They have the same back as the Imperium cards, but in the top right corner, they have this green cube icon, and they'll be between 1 and 4 cubes. So I've got that icon as opposed to the Persuasion icon. So it's a separate deck. Keep them separate, but the backs of the cards look the same. So shuffle up this deck. You're going to deal 2 of these cards to make the Tleilaxu row. And then there's also this card, Reclaimed Forces. It is double-sided. Both sides are the same. You're going to include that in the row as well. So the row will have 2 random cards from this deck as well as Reclaimed Forces. Then there is a Research Station overlay tile. You're going to place it over the existing Research Station space here on the board. So if you want to look, they both have the same icon. They both cost 2 water. They're both combat spaces, but the original allows you to draw 3 cards, and the new one says draw 2 cards, and then has this research icon, which again we found over here on this board. So we'll talk more about that icon later, but those are the differences. That's where this space goes. And then you're going to take your starting hand, your starting cards, and you're going to find your 2 Dune, the Desert Planet cards, and these will be removed from your starting deck. You are going to replace them with these 2 Experimentation cards. So if we look at them side by side, They both have the desert icon for sending your agent. They both give you 1 persuasion, but Experimentation also has this green symbol. This symbol is Specimens. We'll talk about what it means later, but this gives you 1 specimen. And then in the agent area of the card here, we have this research icon again that we found on Research Station. So we'll find out more about what these do, but essentially the Experimentation cards do everything that Dune the Desert Planet can do, but it also has a couple additional icons. Now, if you are combining Immortality with Rise of Ix and you are playing the Epic Game Mode, this Control the Spice card, if you're combining all this together, instead of replacing any cards in your starting deck, it will just start in your discard pile. So if you're combining and you're playing the Epic Game Mode, start Control the Spice in your discard pile, and you just have 11 starting cards with only 10 in your deck. And each player starts the game with one of these Family Atomics tokens. So this is maybe the easiest thing to explain, so I'll just go over it right now. At any time on your own turn, you may spend this token, so it's kind of one-time use. When you spend it, it just goes back to the box. There's no way to get another one as far as I've seen. And when you spend it, you clear the entire Imperium row, just discard everything there, and then deal out 5 new cards. So again, there's 4 of these tokens. Each human player gets one of those and can use it once per game on their own turn, just to refresh this Imperium row. I think that's pretty great. If you're playing solo, or if you're playing 2-player with a rival, if you've got rivals, the rivals do not get these tokens. You just you don't need to worry about it for rivals, but you still get it as a human player. And then you can see in this example, I am the red player, and each human player adds 1 of these discs or 1 of these cylinders to the research track and 1 to the Tleilaxu track. But if you're playing with rivals, the rivals only add their markers to that top Tleilaxu track. They do not interact at all with this research track, so you can leave their tokens off. And then you may notice this space on this track has a little spice icon, and it says 2. So during setup, place 2 spice on that space on that track. We'll talk about that in just a minute. And finally, the rulebook recommends a variant for this expansion, if you're playing with it, to add 1 more victory point requirement before triggering the end game. So if you were playing a 1 to 3 player game, then all players would start with 0 victory points as normal, but don't trigger the end game until you get to 11 instead of the normal trigger of 10. If you are playing a 4-player game, then it suggests make 10 the trigger, but instead of starting on the 1 track on a 4-player game, everybody starts at 0 victory points instead. Now, you don't have to do that. That is a variant in the rulebook, but I get the impression that that is the suggested way to play with Immortality. I think some of these new mechanisms can take a little bit more time to play out, so you might want to lengthen the game by 1 victory point. And finally, during setup, there are some new House Hagal cards. What you're going to do is you're going to take this deck. This is only for 1 player. If you're playing 2-player, and so you've got an automated rival, there are no new cards to add. This only affects the 1-player version. So what you're going to do is go in this deck, find the 3 Carthag cards and remove them, and then you're going to add 3 new Carthag cards and a Research Station card. So the deck is growing by 1. I will go over those at the end of the video. Again, there'll be a chapter marker if you kind of want to see the differences, but first let's learn how to play this so we know what we're talking about. So let's start with this Tleilaxu track. Because I think it's actually the most straightforward. So it's got this icon of a beetle on it, and you'll see throughout the game there's this golden beetle icon. So there are various ways that you might trigger that icon, but when you see it, then you can resolve the icon, and that icon just means advance 1 space on this track. So simple enough. When you land on this space or this space, you also gain an Intrigue card, and then when you land on this space, you get a victory point. And if you are the first person to land here, you also gain these 2 spice. At that point, if another player reaches that space, they get the victory point, but there's no more spice left. And then the final space on the track also gains you another victory point. So I think that track is pretty straightforward. It's got some nice rewards on it and easy enough. So the next thing we need to talk about are specimens and the axolotl tank. So this green icon means specimen. And so you can see on this new experimentation card, if you play it during your reveal turn, gain a specimen. There are other ways you can gain a specimen throughout the game. But these will work in a sort of similar way to tech negotiators, but maybe a little bit more flexible. So when you are told to gain a specimen, you take 1 troop from your supply, and it is specifically a troop, and it is from your supply. So not to confuse you, but if you're playing Rise of Ix, of course, that introduces units, and that's a different thing. This is specific to troops. So when you gain a specimen, take one troop from your supply and put them in the axolotl tank. And if you're playing a multiplayer game, this won't work for solo, but if you're playing multiplayer and you want to achieve sort of an unusual victory, each time that you gain a specimen to your axolotl tank, say thanks a lotl, and see if you can get everybody to walk away from the table and win with a forfeit. I think you'll make a lot of friends that way. But the axolotl tank can contain any number of specimens from any number of players, so you can continue to put them there. They can accrue, and other players can have them there too. And so while they're in the tank, they're called specimens, and then you can use them to pay costs that require specimens. So again, this new Tleilaxu row above the Imperium row here, all the cards have a cost of specimens. So when you take your reveal turn, you may spend persuasion as normal to gain cards from the Imperium row, but you may also at that time spend specimens to gain cards from the Tleilaxu row. Now, even though the backs of the cards are the same, these two rows are completely separate. You can't use persuasion to get cards out of the Tleilaxu row, and you can't use specimens to get cards out of the Imperium row. And game effects that affect one don't affect the other. They're separate things, okay? But beyond that, the mechanics of the row work the same way. So if it's my reveal turn and I want this Contaminator card, I can spend one specimen by removing one of these specimen cubes from the axolotl tank and returning it to my supply. Gain the card, it goes to your discard pile as normal, and then replace immediately that card with the next card on the deck. And just like the Imperium row, if you can afford to purchase that card, you may, and you can keep going until you run out of resources. Now, what you may also choose to do is to spend 3 of your specimens for this Reclaimed Forces card. This card always remains here in the row. You don't take it into hand. It's never removed, but when you pay the 3 resources, you gain the immediate benefit, which is either recruiting 2 troops from your supply to your garrison or advancing 1 space on your Tleilaxu track. And if you spend your 3 specimens and you do that, and then you still have 3 or more specimens, you can do that multiple times at once. That's fine. Now, one really important thing to know about this axolotl tank is at any time, not even just on your turn, but at any time, you may remove any number of specimens from this tank back to your supply. So that can become important if you need to recruit troops and your supply is getting low. You can always take them from here as well. And even if you're playing with the Ix board and maybe you've got no more troops in your supply, they're all in the garrison and on your axolotl tank here, and then you want to send a tech negotiator, you can pull one back from here to your supply to then be a tech negotiator. So this tank gives you some flexibility, and that's pretty nice. So basically, anytime you get the opportunity to place a specimen in the tank, you might as well take it. So okay, that's specimens and the axolotl tank and the Tleilaxu row. So we've covered a lot of the big stuff. Let's talk about the research track next. So anytime you resolve this icon, which is now at the research station or on your 2 new experimentation cards, and of course you may find it elsewhere. See, there's one here on this card here. Anytime you resolve that icon, you advance your cylinder here, your marker on this research track, 1 hexagon to the right. So you can see each hexagon is connected to other hexagons with these little white paths. So you just follow adjacency, but whenever you advance on the research track, you must go to the right. You cannot go up and down. You cannot go to the left. You just keep going to the right. So oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes you'll have a choice. The first time you advance, you must go here, but then you've got a choice between 2 spaces. Each of those gives you a choice between 2 spaces. And just keep your marker in the top half of the hex. Any number of players' markers can be in a single hex. That's fine. You can stack them on top of each other. There's no blocking. But then whatever is in the bottom, that is the reward you gain when you enter that hex. So many of these will give you specimens. Some will allow you to advance on the Tleilaxu track up there. Some will allow you to advance on the research track again. That's pretty cool. You can get some Solari, some spice. You can get some influence with a faction, trash cards. So there's a lot of rewards you can see. But then we've got some icons down here at the bottom, and you can see they're associated with certain columns, and sort of the color changes as you move on these tracks. So when you enter any of the hexes in this column, you now trigger this effect, and it is permanent for the rest of the game. So it does 2 things. One, whenever you gain a card from the Tleilaxu row, you may choose, optionally, instead of putting it in your discard pile, you may place it on the top of your deck. So that's pretty cool. And then you also have this red diamond with a DNA molecule in it. This is called a genetic marker. You have one genetic marker now. So there are certain cards, like you can see this one here or this one here, that will give you something. Something will trigger if you have a genetic marker. And then once you've unlocked it, all these spaces, you continue to have it. Like this effect is ongoing if you're at this column or further. Then, if you make it all the way to the end of the track, you unlock this double genetic marker icon. So I'll talk about that in a second. And then this effect as well. So if you get all the way to the right, that's as far as you can go. And it says if you get more research icons to resolve, instead of advancing this track, because you've already gotten all the way to the end, there's nowhere to advance. Instead, you draw one card. That is your new effect when you get the research icon and you're all the way at the end. But then let's look at this card here and just these effects on the bottom. So this is what you would get if you play this card during your reveal turn. So by itself, it gives you 1 persuasion. But if you have 1 genetic marker, then it gives you +1 persuasion. So now it's worth 2. So if you're over here in any of these columns here, it's worth 2 persuasion. If you make it all the way to the end and you have the double genetic marker, then in addition to this, you also get this. So now you get 1, 2, 3 persuasion by playing this card in the reveal turn. So these effects are cumulative, and you'll see them in other places. You'll see them on some intrigue cards. I think this very top one here, yeah. So by itself, it gives you 2 swords during combat. If you have 1 genetic marker, it gives you an additional 2, and if you have 2 genetic markers, it gives you 2 in addition to the other 2 tiers. So you can get 2, 4, or 6 swords on your combat, depending on where you are on this research track. And then this expansion does introduce, I suppose, a new icon, even though I didn't realize it was new. This one here, it looks a lot like this trash a card icon, but this is trash an intrigue card. So it works the same way. You just have to have one of your own intrigue cards. You trash it as a cost, and then the effect in this case is to draw a card and gain a new intrigue card. So you may come across that new trash an intrigue card icon as you play. And then there's another sort of new icon. Let me find an example for you. There we go. This cross sword symbol here is, the combat icon that we're familiar with. What this icon is saying is when you play this card, it's got this green pentagon. So maybe you send your agent up to one of these spaces, right? Maybe you go up to the High Council. As your effect, if you have 2 influence with the Spacing Guild, you can either draw a card or treat the location where you sent your agent as if it had the combat symbol on it. So you could deploy troops into combat this turn. It's the same icon that we're already familiar with and the rules are the same, but you may see that in new places now. And so there's one more new game mechanic that we need to talk about before we're ready to play, and that is grafting. So you may notice some of these new cards have this green agent box with a little tag above it that says graft. Not all the new cards have it, and even not all the Tleilaxu row ones do, because this one came from the Tleilaxu row, and this does not have graft. But you'll see it on some of the new cards. Let me explain it in sort of reverse order because it's a little easier to start with the reveal turns. So if you have a card with a graft, with this sort of graft box on it, if you play it on your reveal turn, it's just like any other card. Do the stuff at the bottom in the reveal box and nothing changes. So that's super easy. Now things get a little bit different when you play a graft card on an agent turn. So first of all, let's say we have this card. If you play this graft card on your agent turn, you cannot play it alone. It must be played with one other card. Now that means a graft card is played with one card and only one other card. Never by itself, never more than 2 cards, just 2 cards. So let's say I play this graft card with this one here. With Contaminator. So one is a graft, one is not. For the duration of this turn, these are considered to be a single card. So in this instance, I could send my agent to any of these Landsrad Council spaces or to any of the Fremen spaces. It's as if I had a single card with both icons. So I choose where to send my agent, pay any costs that might be associated with the space if you have to, and then you can resolve the effects of the space and the effects of both of the agent boxes on these cards. And you can do those 3 things in any order that you like. Then when your turn is done, both these cards get set aside as normal, and they are once again considered 2 separate cards. So grafting's not a permanent thing. It's just a one-time thing on your agent turn. You can play 2 cards together and get some bonus effects. Now, if you play a graft card and the second card is also a graft card, that's totally fine. You're still playing exactly 2 cards. They both have graft, no big deal. But you don't get to start adding more cards. When you're playing at least 1 card with a graft, then you must play exactly 2 cards. Now, some cards will have effects that say if grafted. So let's use this example. So let's say I play these 2 together. They're grafted now. This card says if grafted, then you also have each of the faction icons on it here on the right. So if you play it by itself, it's just got the 3 standard icons for desert and city and Landsrad Council. But if it's played as part of a graft, and it's not a graft card itself, you can see, then you also gain all these faction icons. So now you can essentially go anywhere you want. So as you can imagine, this can lead to some really interesting combinations. So I think it's gonna be really fun to try and put some of these things together and see what kind of interesting combos I can come up with these grafting cards. So that's a pretty neat mechanic. And so now that we've learned how to play, let's go back to this House Hagal deck and look at the new cards that we added, the Carthag cards and the Research Station card, and we can compare them to the cards that we removed. So here are the old cards for Carthag. You can see they are all identical. The 3 new Carthag cards are each unique. All right, so here's the new ones here on the right. So you still, send the rival agent to the Carthag space. It's still a combat space. Still no swords on the bottom. Still recruit 1 troop to the garrison. But then additionally, each of these cards also has the rival advance their token on the Tleilaxu track. And they would gain any rewards just like normal, either intrigue cards, spice, or VP. Nothing is different for the rivals. But then this card has just those icons. There's extra icons on these 2 cards. So this one, what these are showing are the Tleilaxu row, and we've got the trash symbol on either the right card or the left card. Remember, the Reclaim Forces card is always here, so there's always only 2 other cards in that row. So when this icon is revealed, you're either going to trash the right card or the left card as indicated, and then immediately replace that card. So that helps to cycle the Tleilaxu row a little bit as well. So those are the 3 new Carthag cards. So every time you go through that deck, you can expect each of these cards to go away once. That's not a huge deal. But then also there's these 3 Tleilaxu track icons. So you can expect them to be pushing that track as well. If one rival happens to get all 3, the first time you go through the deck, they'll be on the precipice of getting that victory point in the spice. And then the other new card doesn't replace anything. It just adds the research station, this new research station, to the list of places the rival can go. So when the rival goes there, they don't need to spend any water. There's no cost. They do have the combat icon. There's no swords on the bottom, so it does dilute just slightly by 1 card the number of swords in this or the average number of swords per card in the deck, I guess. So just 1 more blank. And then when they go there, they advance twice on the Tleilaxu row, or Tleilaxu track, I should say, rather. So that can be kind of a powerful one for the rivals. As I said, these are the 1-player cards. There are no 2-player cards. So if you are playing a 2-player game of Dune Imperium with Immortality and using 1 rival, the rival will not interact with any of this stuff. This will be for the 2 human players only. The rival only interacts with any of the Immortality stuff if you are playing a solo game. So those are all the new components and rules for Dune Imperium Immortality. And so I am going to do a solo playthrough and release it the same time as this video. And in this solo playthrough, I am going to play with just Immortality and the base game Dune Imperium. I'm not going to mix it with Rise of Ix, but I think I will come back and do that later. So I think this first playthrough, I will play to the extra victory point. I'll go up to 11 instead of 10. And then I would like to come back and play with Immortality and Rise of Ix and play that with the epic game mode as well. I think that would be pretty cool. So if you're interested in any of that, make sure you leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. Don't forget, I've got a coffee page, ko-fi. The link is in the description description. You can head over there and make a donation to the channel. I don't have any early content. I don't have any special content. I don't hide anything behind paywalls. I make everything free for everybody at the same time. So if you want to show some appreciation for that, that would really help me to keep the channel running. If you'd head over to that Coffee page, make a donation to Table for One. And as always, thank you so much to everyone who has done that. Super appreciated, and I will give you a shout out in the January channel update video. But I think that's all I've got for this time. So if you've got questions, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to try and help you out. Otherwise, I hope this was useful, and I'll see you in the solo playthrough. So thanks again, and I'll see you there.